Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Madison.
Oh my God.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Do we have a special episode for y'all today? I feel like I'm sweating. Like 25-year-old Molly is like absolutely geeking out right now. Like my absolute, like literally like the Beyonce of crystal healing is how I refer to this person.
And now that we've spoken to her, I can see exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
She even has Beyonce energy.
She has Beyonce energy, and I don't know how else to describe it, but we are talking with Krista Mitchell today, who is a renowned crystal expert. She wrote Change Your Energy. She wrote Crystal Reiki. She did a full-time crystal therapy practice in New York City for over 15 years. And now she is pioneering this work into crystal consciousness and journey work. And she is just like, I'm so excited for y'all to hear from her because we had such a good conversation. So many different actionable things that you can do today to start working with your crystals in a deeper way. And I think you're going to love it.
I left that conversation genuinely feeling so inspired for how I want to start working with my crystals. I think this was the perfect way to end that series. I'm so excited. I'm like making a mental list of all the things I want to do. I'm so excited for you guys to hear it and tell us what you think. And so you can fangirl right along with us.
Yeah. So without further ado, here's Krista, everyone. Howdy doody, everyone. We have a very special guest. Madison and I are so excited. This guest we have been teasing for a while. If you have been following the pod for a while, you've heard her name. You've heard me gush about her book. We have in the house today, the one, the only, Krista Mitchell. I'm very excited. Krista has been such a big influence on my journey with crystals. I talked about a couple of episodes ago how her book, Change Your Energy, was my introduction to the world of crystals. And over the last year or two, I've had the honor of training with Krista in like every program she's ever offered, from Pro Crystal Healer to her crystal channeling to her Istaria Crystallis program, which is her new one. And she has just been such a beacon of light for me and has really helped facilitate an unfolding of my own journey. So, Krista, I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. I have been looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Krista, we always start our podcast by sharing your magic moment of the week. So this is like a little example of magic in your real life. So that might be a little manifestation coming through, or an example of the universe supporting you, or just a moment where you were like, oh, that's why I practice, or that's why I work with crystals. Do you have a magic moment you want to share?
Oh, this is the hard one because I feel like, and I really honestly, I have so many magic moments in a week. And so of course I blank on all of them as I sit here at this question. They all just fly away. That's the magic. They all just disappear from my memory. But yeah, it's interesting. Well, because I do journey work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spirit journey work with the crystals and the channeling, and I'm very devoted to it. So I sat down to my meditation today, my sovereignty meditation, where I just center and I open to their spirits and I weave in their energy. And today I was pulled into a journey, and this to me is part of the magic of crystals in terms of what they reveal to you. When you commit to that deeper path of working with them and healing with them. So they drew me into this journey and started teaching me about how there are times where we have to reclaim energy from lost dreams. And so what they meant by that is, dreams that we pursued at one point in time in our life, and they didn't work out, they didn't happen, and we've moved on to a new path, and we're engaged in something new, and we're engaged in a new dream, but there's still energy invested in that old dreams, shall we say. And there can also be sort of patterns or emotions tied up in that, especially if it wasn't working out or it wasn't, coming true for us, or etc. So they pulled me into this memory of my life in Toronto, where I was temping for this investment bank, and I was auditioning as an actress, because that's one of the old paths I walked prior to this work. And the vision was in my apartment at that time, and just the feeling of being limited and trapped and unhappy was just so intense. And one of the things that the crystals have also taught me about is time loops, how there are parts of, and in shamanic practice, they may call this like soul loss or soul retrieval, or, whatever it might be, but there's time loops, and these can go past, through past lives and so on. But parts of us get caught in these time loops where it's just like we're trapped in these moments, these feelings. And because they're so powerful for us, it keeps patterning into our reality and our choices, so that even in our present life where we are right now, there's probably ways that we're recreating those feelings of being limited or trapped or not being able to move forward or not being happy or whatever. So they pulled, and I felt that, and I was like, oh my God, she's still trapped in this. She being me at that time, she's still trapped in this. She's still here. And so they taught me how to get her to step out of that paradigm and free herself from all of that, so that the energy could move forward in a different way and also flow back to me.
Yeah.
And this was something I didn't go into it with this intention. I didn't even expect this. I was just sitting down to meditate, because big day today and so on. All of a sudden this happened, and this energy flowed back, and this feeling of expansiveness and freedom and, excitement for the life I'm co-creating just really became amplified. So I guess to choose my magic moment, like even now as I talk about it, it gives me some chills. That's a magic moment that happened to me, where again, it's like, as you said, this is why I do the work. This is why I show up every day. This is why I'm committed, because of this deep healing and the transformation, but also, the joy and possibility that's accessible to us in it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I love about you as a teacher is like you walk the path before you teach it. It's like, I think it's so cool to hear that. And I know you've shared stories like that in your different trainings and on Instagram and such, but it's so cool to me to see like how your journey is unfolding and how that like parallels some of the journey work that I've experienced with the crystals, and kind of seeing that like we're all kind of walking the same path, and these tools, these stones can help us like accelerate that path or support us on that path in that way. So thank you. That was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. And in ways we don't expect too, because, we can place limits on how we think they're going to work. Yeah, no, that was cool. I mean, I'd love to say, oh, I opened the door and like $1 million just flew past me into the cupboard. And I was like, yes, maybe one day that will happen. We'll float that out there for consideration.
I do think especially that's where like the most poignant magic moments come through, right? Is like you said, I just sat down with the expectation of I was just going to meditate for a little while, get centered for the day. And that's where like all of this opens up, and where the magic really happens is in like the mundane of like, okay, this is part of my routine.
Yeah. Being in that state of curiosity too.
100%.
Yeah. The openness to allow it to happen.
Yeah.
All right. So diving into a little bit more about you, with hindsight, what would you say is the moment that like really started your crystal or spiritual journey? Like what set you on this trajectory?
Well, I mean, I definitely was like a mystic child. So I think in a way, I was definitely always on the spiritual path, always seeing things, experiencing things, really seeking out, not just being open to, but seeking out the magic and wonder in the world. But I think what started me on the healing path, to just be very raw and real and honest, was my own pain. my own pain. I was in New York City, I was training as an actress, but I had patterns throughout the years, through my childhood into my teenage and early adulthood of anxiety, of depression, and, a lot of childhood trauma and things that still needed to be healed and resolved, and just really struggling. I was really struggling emotionally. And so I started seeking out spiritual healing. I had tried some traditional, and and what I mean by traditional, I guess I probably shouldn't say traditional, because I feel like herbs are traditional, crystals are traditional. Modern medicine is really quite a new thing in the history of human beings. But I had just found that the conventional, I guess, hadn't helped or supported me as much as I had hoped. So I started seeking out alternatives, and it was through my experience of the alternatives of energy work, of spiritual counsel, receiving healing, where I started to experience some traction. And I felt like I was starting to find more of myself too in that process. And so I began with Reiki, like most people do, in terms of training. And back then in New York City, I don't mind saying, it was a very different thing from how it is now. Just small, you'd find a teacher through word of mouth and, whatever. But I was practicing Reiki, and a friend of mine was getting into crystals, and she said, can we swap? Can we practice on each other? So I said, sure. And I didn't believe in them at that time. Even though I loved them, I was into them, I had some, as part of my whole like earth magic, Wicca thing and whatever. But I remember her handing me this piece of selenite, just a small tumbled piece of satin spar selenite, opened up. It's still one of my greatest teachers to this day, not that specific piece, but that crystal. And I held it. And after about a minute, I was like, oh my God, like I feel high, like I feel spaced out. I feel like, really kind of blissed out. And she was like, yeah, that's the crystal, that's its energy. And it was like, whoa, I didn't expect this at all. So I started experimenting with them, always first on myself, because as Molly's pointed out, I always start first through my own experience. And all of everything that I do, everything that I've practiced over the years, it's all been through field experience. I've never had training, formally per se in any of this. But yeah, I started experimenting with them, and then I'd start weaving them in to the Reiki sessions I was doing for people. And eventually they kind of took over, and I just kept going. So that's really how I came into it. It was through my own pain and the desire to heal, the desire to transform, the belief that it was possible, because I think that is key. But then also just the hands-on and field experience that just kept reinforcing the belief that this is valuable, that it helps people, that it really works. That's what kept me, I guess, continuing along the path for all these years.
Yeah. Something I've always wanted to ask you, Krista, along those lines is, because I know you did professional sessions in New York City for a long time, right? Like the early 2000s, this is like 15 or so years. I've always been curious, because I feel like over the last 5 years or so, I've seen the way that people talk about crystals and the way that people talk about Reiki and sessions and things like that has changed so drastically. I'm curious, what was it like to do this work in New York City in that period of time before it was like really mainstream or accepted, or maybe it was, I don't know. I'm in Maine. We could be very different from New York City. But I'm very curious, like, what was that like? Have you noticed that change of becoming more mainstream? How did that impact your work? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So it was because when did I take my first? I think I took my first Reiki class in 2003. And by the time I hit 2005, I was like in it. This is what I was doing. That's when I started building my practice, and I went full time, and I was full time in New York City, like well over a decade before I moved back to Canada, and was really doing crystal therapy, but there was that Reiki component, that crystal Reiki component, but most people would refer to it as Reiki at the time. But yeah, getting into that work, it definitely was a different time. It was probably a bit radical to choose to do that. Most people, like even when I was in my Reiki classes, most people at that time were not there because they sought to do it for a profession. No one believed you could do it as a profession. Like I can tell you that for sure. No one believed. Even when I took my Reiki master, I'll never forget my Reiki master teacher saying to me, don't expect to ever do this full time. Don't expect to ever do healing work full time, which of course I clearly did not listen. But anyway,
take that as a challenge.
Yeah, it was just woohoo, went right out, went in one ear out the other. But I was the only one. I was the only one who was like, yeah, I want to do this for a living. I want to do healing work full time for a living. So it was something that people just didn't believe you could do, didn't believe it was possible. People were still very skeptical, even about the effectiveness of it. So it was certainly, I would say, kind of radical, in that way. And yet at the same time, New York is New York, right? New York City. So there was a strong spiritual community there, a strong and thriving spiritual community there. And within the spiritual community, I have always felt that crystals are very strong. People are always drawn to them for one reason or another. So, I mean, I found my community, I found my tribe, but even then, over the years that I was practicing, I would say at least 50 to maybe 70% of my clientele were skeptical. They weren't there because they believed in crystals or even believed in energy work. They were there because I had helped someone they knew and they'd been referred to me. That was really how a lot of it built. So yeah, it was a different world. I mean, I remember, us cheering when the spa at Bergdorf Goodman started offering Reiki. It was like, we've arrived, we're real, we've been accepted. I will never forget that, But yeah, if you had told me that years later they'd be in Oprah magazine and, I'd be interviewed by Vanity Fair or HuffPost or whatever for their crystal articles, I would have had trouble. I would have had trouble believing it. So yeah, it was definitely a different world from how it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. It's like, even now I feel like it's, for some people it can be difficult to make a full-time living doing healing work, and New York City, difficult.
God knows.
Difficult
I have absolutely no
there.
idea how it happened. I tell you honestly, I just went from one goal to the next. I just wanted to get to full time, and then I want, but yeah, God only knows. And yet somehow,
it
happened.
You're guided by something. Clearly, you got a lot of support at your back, energetically and otherwise. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. This is where Molly and I really differ as people, because that's the kind of question that she's like, I've really been thinking on this one. And then the only thing that I've really been able to think about ever since Molly shared your work with me is I'm like, how on earth does this person crystal shop? I need to know your process. How, when you've got like reading your book and seeing like the sheer list of crystal combinations that you have and give and offer, knowing the kind of collection you have, I'm like, I need to know what this person does when they walk into a crystal shop. So please tell me everything.
It's such an interesting question too. It's not one I would have expected, but well, over the years when I was doing crystal therapy, as a crystal therapist, you really do need, I would say, at least 100 crystals, in your kit of different kinds, and then also sometimes multiple pieces of the same, like for instance, selenite. But I just built my collection over the year. I just kept adding more and more and more to it. And interestingly enough, I'm actually in a process now, a very real process of giving a lot of them away. Because my work has changed so much, because it's evolved, because I'm working so deeply with the spirit and consciousness of crystals, as opposed to the layouts and other things that I used to do before. I just don't need them all, and there's no way for me to have that deep, committed, devoted, evolving relationship with 500, 1,000 individual crystals. Like it's just, and I don't work with the bulk of them anymore. I'm at a point where I honestly believe in our lives in general, there's probably only about a dozen, maybe crystals that we need truly in terms of their medicine on our life path. And that's probably about it. But so, yeah, I don't, but the way I have shopped for them, and this has never changed, I always go to what resonates. I always go to what sings to me right from the start. You know, it's like you can have a bin of amethyst and you can be sort of sifting, and there will be that one, right, that just calls to you and that feels right. So even now, I buy very few crystals, like in a year, maybe 5. And when I do, it's, first of all, I have to feel guided to needing a particular kind of crystal. So that's the first thing. And literally, sometimes it will just be in my head. Like last year, it's like I just kept hearing Vivianite. I didn't have that piece in my collection at all, had never worked with it. And like, why do you keep saying this to me? So I finally, just got one. But even then, I always go by the resonance. And I tend now, especially, to only buy crystals from sellers whom I trust, who I feel really know the crystals, are really devoted to them, from a place of integrity, and that source out, wherever they get them from, the mines or the wholesaler, whatever it is, they deal with people who are aligned with that as well in terms of greater transparency or sustainability and so on. And then it's like, I think earlier at the start of the summer, I actually got on a Zoom with Tony and Suzanne from Rock Mama. You know them, right, Molly? Tony and Suzanne. Yeah. I got on a Zoom with them, and they were showing me these different Lemurian seeds, and like each one, I was like tuning in, and making my selections. So that's how I do it now. But it's always been through the resonance. It's always been in terms of what sings to me.
I love that. And then on the other side, how have you been deciding? How do you know when it's time to let go of a stone?
You just know, which I know people hate that answer. Give me the quantifier, A, B, C equals D. But it's like, you just know. It's kind of like knowing when you're hungry, knowing when you're tired, knowing when you're done in a romantic relationship. You know what I mean? So it's just you know, but oftentimes what then happens is resistance, right? Because we get attached to things. So it's about kind of making that commitment to just really listen to and honor your truth. And it's terrible. I will admit this though, because I have trays of them right now. And just recently I was about to say, oh, I think this one would help my friend down there at the shop. And then I was like, no, I don't want to let it go. It was with me at this time in my life, and it helped me with this. And, da, 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 da. And the more conscious part of me is like, yes, but Krista, and so it's like, you can have that conflict, but there's just a lot of them, truthfully, in my keeping too, that maybe I just never related to anyway, but they were necessary for my kit. And it's like, let them move on. So, it's something that you kind of know, like, when you're feeling something or you're not, but it's about us really listening to ourselves and honoring, what we know to be true.
Yeah. I think that comparison to like human relationships is so helpful too, of like, what it feels like to know when a relationship has run its course, when it's between two people. And so having that translate to a stone, I actually think that's a really helpful way to say, you just know.
Oh, good. Okay. Excellent. I will remember that if anyone ever asks me again.
I was like sitting here trying to come up with an analogy. I was like, when it's time to get new shoes and throw away the old shoes. But no, I like that better. It's so interesting, Krista, because I feel like as your work has evolved and as I've taken more of your trainings, I feel like my work with the stones has evolved too, that I'm in this place now where I'm also feeling like, I think there's like 6 crystals that I work with on like a regular basis. And then the rest just collect dust. So I also have been like pruning my collection and just
good for you.
Giving them away. Can you speak about that evolution? Because I know now you're working more with crystal consciousness and journey work and light codes. What has that evolution been like for you from the more like quote unquote traditional healing work that we hear talked about in crystals? Because you're kind of like on the cutting edge of it, at least in my eyes, the Beyonce of crystal healing, as I've said.
Yes. Oh, I'll take it. It's a great question. I guess, I had been doing what we'll call traditional therapy, right? The laying on of crystals on the body to affect healing on multiple levels. I had been doing that for so many years. And, I am a visionary. I am constantly evolving and creating, like that's my jam, right? That's what juices me up. Transformation is like my thing. So I got to a point where I almost want to say, like it started to feel stale, but I don't mean to give it that kind of coloring, but it just, I started to feel like, I guess I was stagnating, I had developed this whole system of healing and I'd been teaching it for years. And, as you know, it was based on, all the field work and case studies and all the stuff that I had done. And it's a very sound system, it works. But I just kept feeling, I guess, the need, the desire, the craving to keep evolving. And where my soul really wanted to go, where it wanted to dive, was into the mystical and into the spiritual. And, everything goes through patterns and cycles, right? So, crystals had, there was a time, and again, just going back to New York City, it was so important for, like, I remember a healer who was a colleague of mine. And this had to be, I don't know, 2006, 2007, something around there, where she was like, we're the pioneers. We're the ones who are making this work a legitimate profession.
Yeah.
And there's always been that need, that desire for legitimacy, in order to make things credible, in order to be respected and accepted and thrive and so on, doing the work that we do. And all of that is understandable. And I definitely saw, I would say, kind of like, just a few years ago, especially, there was this really strong drive to scientifically explain crystals and crystal healing and how it works. And, again, I understand that with the context of our times, people desiring that and needing that and trying to fit into that mold. But as I said, I'm a mystic child, I didn't just believe in magic. I sought it out. And so my soul was just craving to get into the mystical and get into the spiritual more. And I truly, firmly believe that as human beings, we need that. That is part of what keeps us healthy. Like, we're finally at a point where it's like, okay, we've, mental health has been an accepted part for a while. We're now accepting that the emotional component of, our health and our well-being and how we thrive on every level. I do eventually believe that acceptance will come in terms of the spiritual as well. So I had this deep, deep, deep desire, and was still just even personally encountering patterns like today, that I just couldn't, no matter how much shadow work I did, no matter how many layouts, I still wasn't moving through it. So there was, I guess it was just kind of like a call out to the universe from my heart. And what that initiated, and I think it was around 2019, maybe, because I had been putting on YouTube and whatever, like for a few years, my crystal channelings and all these other things. This idea sparked about teaching mediumship, crystal mediumship, teaching the way I was doing that. And what that opened up or invited was just a series of downloads, which I still receive even now, just teaching me this whole new way to work with them and to work through them. And that's eventually what brought me into not just the mediumship and the channeling, but the spirit journey work. And the quantum potentiality and what we carry with us in our DNA that goes beyond just our genetics, and just this whole new world of work opened up for me, and it was all channeled through them. Right down to the name, Astaria Crystallis was channeled through crystals. But then it was, it's always incumbent on me as the human, as the vessel, to then do my research and to organize it all and, follow my own work and then make a training and so on. So that's really how it evolved. But I also felt like there were limitations that I kept bumping up and, that people kept bumping into with the traditional again, work with crystals in terms of healing, in terms of stuff like ancestral healing, stuff like past life healing, going deeper into the work we're doing in consciousness with like shadow healing and childhood trauma and all these things, like because still, even when we're doing the layouts, it's in some ways indirect because we're not consciously engaging in that work, on that level. And so this just moved it brilliantly and powerfully into that stratosphere where all of a sudden we could just really consciously engage with those levels of our health and how they're patterning and impacting our reality, which is incredibly powerful, and being able to address it that way. I'm like so in love with this work. It's like I'm excited just even to record my classes, and this is why I'm devoted to my daily spiritual practice, because of how much it helps me. So the evolution was very organic. It came from a song in my heart, I guess. And the universe responded, the crystals responded, and that's how it happened.
It's so interesting because I am someone that like, I want to know the science behind how everything works. So I remember when I signed up for your training being like, I trust Krista, but I don't know about this. and it's so funny because like going through your program and feeling on a physical, emotional, and energetic level, the shifts, like I can't deny it. It's like one of those things where it's like for me, ever since then, now, like the crystal layouts, they do feel a little stagnant because they don't feel as deep. I don't feel like I'm as empowered when I'm doing a crystal layout as like when I'm working and doing the journey work, because like you talk about so much, you're in allyship with the crystals. So it's like working directly with them. I see it as like being, driving a car with the crystal in the passenger seat with you and directing you and navigating you, rather than like being in the back seat of an Uber, which is kind of how I feel when I do healing layouts now, like there's less of that relationship with the stones. And I don't know, I just feel like it's been such a powerful practice and so expansive for me over the last couple of years that I've been doing this work with you. What would you recommend as the first step for someone wanting to kind of go down this path of like the journey work and working with crystal consciousness and this kind of new evolution, besides taking your training, which we will leave a link to in the show notes?
Right. Yes. Well, that's a great question. I think the power word here is engage. With the work that we're doing now with the crystals, we're just so deeply consciously engaged with intention and purpose as co-creators of ourselves.
Yeah.
Which really is incredible. And it sounds so far out, but again, quantum physicists, quantum biologists, they're talking about this all the time. Epigenetics, the impact our consciousness has on DNA. And quantum biologists, even through experiments, have demonstrated that our DNA has a multidimensional field.
Whoa.
That our cells respond to conscious prompts. And if you just think about that for a second, my God, I could weep at the power and potential we have as human beings to change or co-create, like just even the very fiber of our being. There are quantum biologists right now who are working with DNA to try and see how they can regrow an organ, a limb.
Wow.
Because all of that blueprinting is there. It's what built us. But they're also looking at, again, the multi-dimensionality of DNA and its consciousness and what else it carries and is encoded there. Again, just like beyond our genetics. So I think for people who want to And I know that desire is there, and I know it's getting stronger and stronger, people desiring to connect more spiritually to their crystals. And I think more to themselves, to start weaving more of this in, even if right now we're still so, conditioned to the limitation, like this is reality and the rest of that isn't. I feel like that's shifting. But I would say, just from that desire of engaging, what I walk people through doing first is, just holding that crystal in their hand and just contemplating the fact that beyond its shape, its feel, its properties, its chemistry, there is a whole quantum universe in there, subatomically, and everything has consciousness. So there's a spirit in there too. And what happens if you just kind of drop silently into yourself and just touch your heart on its heart? Just imagine touching your heart on its heart. Just imagine touching on its consciousness with your consciousness and opening up to its spirit and seeing what flows through or what happens from there, because that's where you're opening doors. As soon as we start thinking, what if, or why not, or could it be, we create the possibility for it. So that's where I would begin, rather than thinking this pink rock is going to attract me a boyfriend. And I'm not mocking people for thinking that, because, that's part of what's taught right about them. But if you start thinking, my God, this pink rock is likely at least a couple thousand years old, and within it is a universe and a consciousness. And what happens if I open to that? And just start there, because I do believe that when we're bringing, like, coming, just circling back to a second to the shopping question, right? When we walk in, if you've walked into a crystal shop, if you've ever had that experience, dear listeners, and there was just a crystal that just called to you, that just saying to you, you had to get that crystal and you had to bring that home. It's saying to you for a reason, on a soul level. And just even opening up to the greater possibility of why did this crystal that's like 2,000 to 5,000 years old, even more, see me walk in and sing to me? So I think that's the place to begin. I think that's where the shift starts to happen.
Yeah, I love that, because I think sometimes I hear from people where they're like, oh, it must have just been a coincidence that it sung to me. But when you think of it in that consciousness, and that for thousands of years it's existed, and it had trillions of different possibilities of who it could sing to, and it sang to you, like there has to be some greater reason for it. There has to be something that crystal, its consciousness, knows that our conscious awareness can't pick up on. So why not lean into that rather than trying to think our way through the practice? I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that soundbite like readily available to me at all times. My family has a crystal shop, and
cool.
that like put voice to a lot of the things that I don't quite know how to express. When people come in with like very specific questions of like, what crystal is going to bring me this thing? Like, put it in my hands, I'm ready to go. Where I want to be like, there's so much more. I'm going to have that on my phone to just be like, press play here, listen to Krista explain it. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to listen to this and walk around. All right. I'm going to take it back a little bit to that shopping question as well. And you were talking about your kit. I think it's interesting hearing you talk about like I have a little bit of like a collector's mentality of like, I want all the things. I want like that collection of 100 crystals readily available to me. But if you had to start over, if someone came in the night and took all of your stones, there's nothing left.
Oh my God, don't say that to me, woman.
I know. So sorry. What are like the 3 to 5 stones? Or you said that dozen, if you know that dozen off the top of your head that you would start with, where would you rebuild from?
Oh, what a question. I think part of me, it's just, I think my legs fell off just even at the thought of that.
I know, all the blood drained from your face.
The shock and the fear. But it's interesting. If I can nerd out for just 20 seconds, I would still be able to I would still be able to connect with those crystals wherever they are in the world, with their consciousness, with their spirit, and still have that energetic connection to them and weave their energy in. Okay, well, let's just riff on this. Let's just be very real. Lemurian seed, absolutely. The seed crystals, the quartz, selenite, satin spar selenite, as opposed to the pure. I don't relate, or the clear. I don't relate to that as much. But selenite, black tourmaline. I would need healer's gold again. Elite shungite. I'm just kind of going through like what I work with, in a day or a week. Ahawite. And I'd be really ticked at that person for taking my Ahawite, because have you seen the prices of Ahawite? I'll find that. I will hunt them down. That's what's going to happen. But Ahawite, I would need smoky celestial quartz. I would need apophyllite. Yeah, let's just start. Let's start there. That's I rose quartz, I think. Rose quartz. Mookaite jasper. Yeah, that I would say let's start there. That would probably be where I would begin in terms of, and even if those were the only ones I could ever get again, that would do. That would do. But yeah, let me round it off then with celestite and labradorite. See, here I go. Pot calling kettle. And you do crystals. Well, let me just list out all the ones I need.
And are there any on that list, or any not on that list, that you would recommend to a beginner, someone who is looking to get to that place of consciousness communication with their stones, but they have nothing?
Yes. Well, see, that's to me, that's a tricky question. And I will own this by saying, yes, I am that person who at some point in time blogged and wrote about the 10 top crystals you need, and the 10 top protection crystals, and 10 top grounding crystals. But I think if we take a different approach. So let's take a different approach, right? Because we've been talking about crystal spirit, consciousness, etc. Let's take a different approach. You feel drawn to getting into crystals, and my first question would be, why? What is it that you need? What is it that you're seeking to achieve? Because if we look at it from, let's say, the analogy of herbs, you're feeling drawn to get into herbs, right? There's usually a reason for that. It's usually because you have, digestive imbalances, or there's something about your health going on, right? And this is why you're feeling drawn to herbs. And so you don't get the top 5 herbs that everyone says you should get. You get the herbs you need, right, for your digestive health or your sleep or whatever it is. I mean, that's how we approach it that way. But with crystals, we tend to approach them more like with shoes. Molly, to use your example, to weave that back in, we tend to approach them like, well, you need a pair of sneakers, and you need this, and you need that. And then once you have these, you absolutely must have those thigh-high black leather stiletto boots, because they say, hello, sexy kitten, right? And then we go on and on. So I think if we were to approach that differently, what I would say is first sit down and just get clear on why you're feeling drawn to them, because there's a reason. There's obviously something you want to change or transform in your life, health, etc. And then if we just take the 5, if we go by the 5-fold, so, what is one thing physically that you'd like to work on? What's one thing emotionally that you'd like to work on? What's one thing, mentally that can help support you? What's one thing spiritually that you're into or would like to develop or open to? And then I would say, to round that off, what's one thing you want to really manifest into your life? And then once you've got that list, because we are our own favorite fixer uppers. I really believe this. So once we've journaled about that, we've got our list, then cross-reference, the keywords for those needs in a crystal book. And there's so many crystal reference books now. You can just take your pick in terms of which one you enjoy reading, and just cross-reference which crystals, come up as being good for those things. And then kind of just narrow it down, if we're kind of taking that mental approach, just sort of narrow it down into, which one you most feel drawn to, and start working with those 5. and start there, because the world of crystals, I understand why the top 5, 10 lists and why those questions are there, because it's ginormous, right? And it's so overwhelming, and everyone has different opinions, and there's so many, and it's like, where do I begin? And it's like, well, you always begin and end with you. Mm-hmm. So begin there. What is it you need? Because I could say, oh, green aventurine and this and that. But and then people go out and they get these crystals, and then they sit on a shelf because it's like either they don't know where to start, don't know how to work with them, don't know why they have them, or they just don't feel drawn to them, or they're not the medicine that they need. And then they may get more, and they all sit on the shelf. And then sooner or later, people are like, yeah, crystals don't work, but it's just because it's not what you specifically need. So I would say start with you and what your needs are, narrow it down that way, and then look for the stones that meet those. And as you start working, and as you start cultivating that relationship, and as you start experiencing the healing change from them, then you can look to, what would I like to weave in next? Because the thing is, you're also not a brand spanking new beginner anymore. You're someone who's starting to build like real experience with them, which in and of itself can be empowering. So that would be my answer to that question.
I love that answer. I think a part of me had it for you in this slight feeling of like wanting someone else to validate the same way that Molly and I answer that question.
Good. I validate you.
You heard it here, folks.
But I'm glad you're saying that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I think that's, a more conscious approach, but it's an approach that's actually going to help you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you won't listen to Molly and I say it, listen to Krista say it.
Listen to them. Listen to me. Listen to them. Yes.
So Krista, you mentioned using crystals in your journey work, your morning meditation. Are there other ways that you use crystals in your day-to-day life? Any like low effort, fun rituals that you can easily include crystals in your morning, your night routines that you love?
And once again, I blank. I'm like,
I just picture you, Krista. I picture you just like walking around your house with like crystals everywhere. And I picture you just like picking them up like you turn on and off light switches. That's like how I imagine you live.
Oh, no. They are all around me at this moment in time. That is true. But well, listen, I think it comes down to how you like to engage with them. Like, I don't actually wear crystals anymore. That used to be the thing that I would say, just pop a crystal in your bra, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't actually do that anymore because I weave them into my energy field. But for me, I guess I'll just say, what I do is I have, I come into my studio in the morning, and I always begin with my sovereignty meditation, which I get, again, is that centering and sort of surrendering to the stones, and just, and then I will work with them, with the sacred geometry, right, in terms of the cube at the root for grounding and stabilizing. There's always some kind of journey work or medicine work or something that I do with them kind of after that. And then I just sort of have around me, like, for instance, right now I've got 2 of my ally stones, right? I've got my smoky celestial, my ahwite. I teach with them. I do a lot. I go into people's spaces. I do clearings with these. So I've just got them here, and they're with me, and they're weaving into this conversation that we're having. So I think it's about, just in terms of how you wish to engage with them. Like I have certain crystals that I'll have by my bed, right? Or that I'll sit and meditate with before I go to bed, or if I wake up in the night and the mind starts kicking off, to kind of bring me back down. So, I think in terms of rituals, just sort of have them somewhere where when you feel the need to connect to them, they're there, and you can connect to them organically and open up to their energy, whether they're at your desk or they're in your car. Like I actually have, a chunk of rose quartz actually in my car, in the dash of my car, just because, driving makes me feel anxious. And so it's comforting, but I'm still present, like I'm still alert. So I think if you start weaving them in that way, as connection points throughout your day, It's simple, but you're engaging with their energy, in that way. Is that useful? Is that a useful answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Good.
sitting here geeking out because when you said like you don't wear crystal jewelry anymore because you're weaving it into your energy field, I've stopped wearing crystal jewelry since doing this work with you. Like I wear it sometimes, but I find I have to take it off midday because like the energy just like comes into my field so much faster now. So it's cool to hear you like have that same experience. I thought I was just like sensitive.
Well, you are.
Well,
You're
yes, I know. I meant to
in a
like
conscious way,
the
in an
feeling
empowered
of
way.
bracelets bothers me.
Yes, no, I can't have any of that on me anymore. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Wow.
That really is. That makes me nervous. I'm like, do I want to connect? I love my crystal jewelry. Do I want to connect too hard that I have to give it up?
No, you always get to do things the way you choose. You always get to do things the way you choose, and that feels best to you. That's one of the things that the crystals collectively teach, is us reclaiming our sovereignty. So you get to choose what works best for you, no matter how other people are doing them, Yeah.
I love that too. So you've been teaching for quite a while, and you've talked about spending a lot of time with skeptics. Is there anything, if you could plant any one audio track from your teachings into the brains of everyone on earth, what would they hear?
Oh my God in heaven.
What's the one thing you think everyone needs to know from what you teach that could benefit absolutely anybody?
No pressure, Krista.
Just the one thing that's immediately going to go into everyone's brains.
The temptation abounds. Send me money. No, I'm kidding.
My Venmo is.
Yes. You know what comes to me, and it came to me when I first, whenever you sent the questions, but it still comes to me now, just very strong and clear as day from all these teachings. If there was one thing I could say, it's stop listening to me. Stop listening to them. Listen to yourself. Listen to your truth. That's what I would say. Or listen to yourself and honor your truth. That's what I would say.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's the sound bite, folks.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah, I think that's definitely like one of my favorite quotes. I forget who says it, is the purpose of a teacher is to introduce you to your own inner teacher. And I feel like that's something that I live by.
Ooh.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
That's why I love you, Krista. That's why we get along so well.
That's why I love you.
Krista, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was like, I'm sitting here like my inner, not my inner child, but like my inner, Molly 5 years ago is like freaking out that I'm like sitting here talking to you. Like I literally, I'm like picturing myself like going into my first crystal shop, like picking up your book and just being like, wow, it'd be cool to talk to her one day and ask her stuff.
Look at all those sticky notes in there.
I know. I got them both. I was just flipping through with Madison. I have like weird notes to myself in here that I just. But anyways, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. How can folks find out more about you? How can they work with you? How can they see all of your amazing stuff?
Oh, well, I guess the easiest way is to go to my website. My website, krista-mitchell.com, or to seek me out, just seek me out on the socials, at the Krista Mitchell. It's something different on TikTok though. I think it's Crystalline Academy on TikTok. But I'm not really on TikTok. But so yeah, that's what I would say. Either go to my website or just seek me out on social media, and that's where I would point people to, or to my books, Crystal Reiki and Change Your Energy, because those are really like, they were meant to be time capsules, to preserve the work. All the work, all the discoveries, in New York City, so that they could still benefit people as I moved on. So I'm grateful that you have them.
Oh yeah,
that touches my heart.
I would tell everyone to buy them. I made Madison buy them for her shop, so they're available there.
Yes. Molly and I met about probably 6 months after my family's store opened. And it was like probably one of her first questions to me. She was like, do you have a book section? Do you have this book? And why not?
Oh, Molly, I owe you a commission. Do I not? This must be done. This must be done. God bless you.
Anyways, thank you so much, Krista. It's been such a pleasure, such an honor to have you on. And we're so grateful. And everyone listening, go find her, go check her out, go follow along, go connect with your crystals.
Connect with your crystals and listen to yourself. Honor your truth. Yes. It's been brilliant. I had such a great time. Thank you very much to both of you. And thank you for what you're doing. This is lovely what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, until next time, friends.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.